Okay guys, so welcome back, and today we're going to be doing an art video. As you can see here, I have basically a little inspiration board, and today's video is based around the idea of sort of like children's drawings. So I sent out a message to some people I know and asked anyone if they could send me maybe their drawings as a kid or maybe their kids' drawings. And the idea here is I'm going to redraw it as a full character drawing. So we're going to go ahead and get started here, and I'm going to try out a couple of brushes. And then I've got this little reference here for the pose because figure drawing is something that I don't have a ton of practice with, and therefore I want to get more practice with it. And I think that's a really good thing to do if you're an artist, is to try to practice things that you're not strong in yet. So what I'm doing here is basically I laid out the construction lines for the pose that I'm trying to sort of use as a reference over there to the left, and recreate it over here on the right by hand, so that I can kind of get an idea, proportions and gesture of that pose. I chose a pose that was pretty simple, I would say, in terms of the midsection and the torso, but put the limbs at some more dynamic and interesting angles, so that I could practice around with that. Between the original drawing and what I end up doing here with my main drawing, I want to keep as many of the original elements of sort of the original drawing, which is that the kid's drawing, and try to use as many as I can to create something new and interesting while sticking close to the original. The drawing that I am using today is one that was sent from my good friend David. And you can see here I'm noting some of the things in his original drawing to use in this one. I think one of the funniest things about the original was that there was a legend on the side that young David, I think he drew this when he was about 3 or 4, young David drew a legend on the side to tell what colors went where, and he basically has like this black face covering with the bottom half of it being blue. So I wanted to kind of stick with that. You can see here I'm embellishing a little bit because I thought it would be more visually interesting to put some more elements into the drawing. So I've sort of interpreted that as being sort of like that stereotypical like ninja mask, except for this one has no openings for the eyes. It's instead like a full face mask. A little reminiscent of like Daredevil's original just black cloth suit, like in the Netflix series. So here I'm drawing some like pieces of cloth fabric, which are the tie straps for that sort of face mask. I also wanted to get a little bit of practice with drawing sort of fluid shapes and more organic shapes, so I'm trying here with cloth. And you can see basically I'm just drawing those out and then orienting them in such a way that it looks like they're sort of flowing from the back of the head. Here I try to do a little bit of an inclination that there's a nose there. I end up not liking it and realizing the nose is in the wrong place, so I take it out. And then I move on to line work. So line work, what I'm basically doing here is just going over my original sketch, taking the bits that are the most important and outlining them, so we have some hard edges to use. You see there, I wanted to see if the feet had any sort of boots or idea there. On the original drawing, they don't. They're just kind of, those stereotypical kids, like little nub things that they use for feet, little circles. Here I'm fixing a couple of proportions. I realized that shoulder was very sort of bulbous. And then I start putting in some little detail lines, some very simple lines, again based off of this reference pose so that I can get an idea what I'm doing. Now that I have the main pose inked out, I start on some of the details from the original. The main details you can see there, I am basically looking at the belt that was in the original drawing. I try out a couple of different canisters, and I decide to sort of simplify the tip of what seems to be some sort of like nozzled canister into just sort of a chamfered edge there. Then I start trying to draw this little bottle thing on what looks to be a utility belt. Don't really like the shapes I'm getting, so I go ahead and off to the side there just create a bottle on sort of a forward-looking plane, and then I'm gonna basically squish and transform it to fit to the part of his belt where the bottle is, which I'm doing right now. After I do that, I just connect it up and make it look like it's connected to the belt. So that's the basics of his utility belt, the couple of things he's got there. So now, the two main elements of this drawing is the swords. Now, you can see here I'm sort of tracing this outline of this sword reference that I got, and while some people might think that's kind of like cheating, I really wanted to get this sword handle right, the whole hilt, everything, because you can see in the drawing that he's got a very sort of medieval short sword style sword over there, which is I think what we all sort of think of a sword when we were kids, and I really wanted to get those for both blades. In the drawing, the legend says that these swords here are water and electricity, so I wanted to represent that, so I got a couple of references, and the sword I'm making first here is the water sword. So I wanted to make the blade look as if it was literally made of water. So that's what I'm doing. I like the idea of these like little flecks of water coming off of it, the sword not being perfectly solid. Later we'll see that I make it translucent. And then after I finish that one, I move over to the lightning sword. This one I basically just roughen up the edge, make it look like it's sort of crackling energy, and then I put these little arcs coming off of it to make it look as if it's lightning. I try an arc here that just goes off into sort of space, but ended up not really liking it and elected to swap back over to these little in and out arcs. I then make the tip here look like it's fraying, as if it's like energy that's pulsating at the end. Add a little sort of impurities there in the blade, and then I'm going to move on to the hands. I left the hands off so that I could kind of get the sword orientation first. And now I'm just tracing in the hands and trying to get them to fit around the sword in a way that looks good, makes sense. So here, that's what I'm doing, and then I go ahead and do the other hand. I am using the very blocky reference there. I am tracing over there to get the general size of the hands correct, and then I'm editing that and drawing over it to sort of get the actual shapes of what a hand would look like in. Now that I finish that bit, I'm going to go into some detail work. It looks like the original had like a little nub on the side of it, so I go ahead and put that in as an earpiece, and then I go back to doing the nose. It looks like an animal nose right now, but basically that's the shadow that would be underneath the nose if this was like a cloth face covering. Then I put some inclinations as to sort of like darker areas where the eyes would be, but are covered up by cloth, obviously. Here what I'm doing is I'm trying to select all the area within the outline. I did not close all of my lines perfectly, so you can see me dealing with some of that. Also, I don't know if anyone knows how to do this. I'm not a Photoshop expert or anything, so I wasn't really sure how to keep it from sort of like leaving this feathered edge around, which we'll see later. Here I go back to the belt and basically fix up the belt, give it a little bit more detail, just like a little clasp. And then I'm going to try to basically select all the area inside. Now, the legend over here, and my favorite part of this drawing and why I chose it, is that the legend that was given in the original drawing, you can see I'm fixing up my edges here, by the way. In the original drawing, it says that his entire suit is carpet. It's written as if carpet is a color, but to sort of get that carpet vibe, I guess, what I end up doing here is playing with some overlays and textures and trying to give it a very carpety, sort of noisy texture. The color legend then sort of says that the belt is yellow and there's a little few blue bits, that the bottom half of his mask is blue. So I go ahead and put the block colors in here, and then color in the cloth as well to match the top of the mask. I then color the earpiece just to kind of carry that yellow up. And you see I use a darker yellow here for the sword. I actually go back and fix the belt with that same darker yellow. I just think it fits a little better. Putting the blades of the swords back in, I had to do some layer manipulation, but I go in and I fill around the edge of the sword, and then after I've done that, I select that area and I actually play with some gradients here with the water sword to try to give it like an oceanic vibe, where nearer the hilt it's darker and further away it's lighter, kind of like deeper and lighter, deeper and shallower ocean. Then I choose a very light blue, light greenish blue for the electricity, because I want it to look very much like an energy sword. You can see here I'm cleaning up some of the remnants that were left by that gradient, and then I make both swords a little translucent, because neither sort of energy nor water would be fully opaque. So I go ahead and make them translucent so you can see through them. Here I'm playing with some overlays and some feathering and glow on the electricity sword, because it would, if made of energy, sort of be putting off light. After this I move into some shading. I do very, very basic shading for this drawing, and basically I'm using the sword as the main light source, and also assuming that there may be a little bit more light off to the left hand of the character. You see here I'm going in across the belt and putting in just some very basic sort of cell shading, going around areas that would be more obscured from the sword, mainly, and having sort of a left-hand bias of where the lighting would be coming from. This is assuming the sword is pretty bright. You can see there's very little shading. I also did this because this week I've been a little strapped for time, and that sort of reflected here. I end up not doing any highlighting, which I kind of wish I had, but the closest thing I do is sort of in here, what I'm doing with the sword right now. I put in some flecks of white where maybe like the water is moving more rapidly. I go in and I play with some layers and overlays with the shading to maybe make it a little darker. And then I try some textures out on the other pieces of cloth, like his mask and his belt. I really didn't like the way the belt was looking right now. It was way too simple. So I actually go in and I try a few different things. First I just try to dirty it up. You can see there, I outline the belt, try a few different sort of brushes to make it dirtier, end up not liking it, and just putting in cross sections along it in the bottle. The belt is very simplistic. If I were to do this again, I would go fix that. I also just fixed up the contours of his face, and this is basically nearly finished for today. So I put in a neutral tone background, and then play around with the zooms, trying to get it right so I get it in frame. And then we look at some of the different aspects of it, and so here's the original next to the redraw, and basically what we've had is this, I guess, sword-wielding ninja who's got 2 elemental blades, and I like to think, sort of in a Matt Murdock fashion, that he's likely blind, hence why he doesn't need any openings in his mask to keep seeing. I really like that his suit is made out of carpet. I think that is hilarious and interesting. I don't know why it would be made out of carpet. Maybe he shuffles his feet really hard on the ground when he's about to go into a fight and builds up some sort of static charge. Who knows? The imagination of kids is always fun and interesting. But here you are. Here's the sort of final simple character design. This whole process took me probably about 3 hours while doing some other things as well. And here we are. So I hope everyone likes it. I hope that David obviously likes it. And I hope that everyone found this interesting. If you'd like to see more art content in the future, then definitely like this video, leave a comment if you want to see it, try to give me some feedback so I know what kinds of videos you'd like me to post in the future. As always, thanks for watching, and remember to like, subscribe, and ring the bell if you want notifications from the channel. Adios!